Welcome to video 1 of How to Learn Any Language. I'm Tony Marsh. I'm a former military linguist and teacher to military people and non-military people alike. My languages are English, Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, bits and pieces of others, but the real thing here is language learning strategy. All right? And if you're watching this video and you've joined this course, then I assume that you have a language or more more than one language that you are looking to learn, and you're here to develop the best possible strategies, mindsets, tactics, plans, systems, philosophies, and practical ways to learn those languages. You may be a complete beginner of a language. You may be close to an expert at the language and still trying to figure out how to make it even better. And How to Learn Any Language, the course you're watching now, is going to cover everything in the world, everything possible that there is to talk about in language learning. And if new things pop up, then we'll make a new video. This course will be ever perhaps changing and evolving, and new concepts being added to it. But before we can get into all of that, in this first video, we're going to begin with the three core principles of language learning. And those three core principles of language learning are just going to they're going to be present in every other concept. Like, these three concepts are always there. And in fact, these three core principles contain everything. These core principles are what I think of as small but complete. It's a microcosm of everything. The entire thing fits into these three principles. In fact, principles 2 and 3 are contained by principle 1. So with no further ado, let's talk about what is the number one core principle that will be ever present in this method and in language learning. And not just this method, all language. This method just describes good language learning, by the way. This isn't reinventing the wheel. Often people say, when they understand the method and they themselves are already good language learners, they say, "Man, that's what I do. That's what I do. You just described what I do." I'm like, yeah, because this method just describes good language learning and then helps you lean into it, helps you capitalize on those things. So thing one is that language learning is not about memorizing words, but about expressing thoughts. So you should have a notebook for this course. You should pause the video right now and get a notebook, okay? That notebook can be for your it can be language specific if you're learning Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, whatever it may be. But also just for the sake of this video course. This video course is kind of low tech. It's pretty low tech. There's no PowerPoint. I want to talk to you. I want to show you some things. Some videos may have a screen. But grab your notebook and write this first thing down. Core principle number 1. Right, memorizing words, and then cross it out. Language learning is not about memorizing words. Often that's what we think it is, because your class is about that, your book is about that. We think, well, how am I going to speak my language? Of course, I need to know the words, and so you try to learn the words, and then try to memorize the grammar, and we do that. You never get anywhere because you're not expressing thoughts. Language learning happens when one of two things happens. Either you express a thought, or you understand as someone else expresses a thought to you. That's the only ways it happens. Now, someone's going to say, "Oh, but no, learning the language means..." Yeah, I am learning a language because I learn new words now. And I'm like, learning words is just a part of it. That's just a part of it. It's not about learning the words. It's about expressing thought. You need practice in expressing thought and understanding as another person expresses thought. That's communication. It's about expressing thoughts. Okay, that's core principle number 1. Core principle number 2 is that 2 and 3 could be in either order. I'm deciding which order to put them in. 2 and 3 is that, let's do this one first. Core principle number 2 is that conversation is a back and forth game that's almost like a sport. A sport like tennis, a game like chess, something like boxing, something like a ping pong. It's any sport or game that requires a partner, maybe even dancing, you could fit in that. That's what language learning is. That's thing two. All right. So, and that's based on thing one. One is that it's about expressing thoughts. Great. Now we're bringing in that second person. It is a back and forth thing. We're here for you to become conversational. This is not ancient Latin where you're going to just read. No, we are interested in you being conversational as quickly as possible. We're interested in you being able to pass an OPI. That's a military speaking test, oral proficiency interview, where you just answer questions, right? So in the military, as a linguist, if you can pass an OPI, which means that you can answer questions and be accurate grammatically too, like you have to be good. If you can answer questions, you pass the OPI, you get a pay raise. Some other professions, like flight attendant, I've heard, like can also pass OPIs. So it's the back and forth sport of questions and answers, right? Conversation is a matter of questions and answers. We're going to break these things down even further as we go, but know that the main thing that we're interested in your language learning is the back and forth expressing of thoughts. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. How are we going to do it? Well, you'll see. Brings us to thing three. Thing three is that the structure of a language creates conversation. So what is the structure of a language? It comes down to three parts: verbs, vocabulary, and useful expressions. If you've got your notebook with you by now, which you should, I'm going to show you this way. This is the bottom of the pyramid. The bottom of the pyramid is structure. That makes sense, right? Because structure holds everything together. No, like the house needs four corners first and beams. It needs to be a cube before it can have walls. And then when it has the walls, then it has the things inside. Structure is verbs, vocab, and useful expression. I told you this is going to be low tech. You can do this. Grab your notebook. Structure, bottom of the pyramid: verbs, vocab, useful expressions. Verbs and vocab mix and match. We're going to get into that in another video very soon. But for now, verbs and vocab and useful expressions are structure. And structure holds up your conversation. Got it? Conversation are questions and answers. Split that in half. Q&A, questions and answers. The back and forth of questions and answers are just the expression of thought. There it is, top of the pyramid, expressing thought. So, the three core principles upon which everything else in this massively thorough course is going to depend on is thing one. Language learning is not about memorizing words, but rather expressing thoughts. Conversation is the back and forth of questions and answers where two people express thoughts to each other. And how is conversation created? Through mixing and matching verbs, vocabulary, and useful expression. Structure is the foundation of conversation. Conversation is the expression of thought. Those are the three core principles of language learning, and everything else in this course is going to be based on that. So thank you for getting involved. Thanks for your interest. I am looking forward to completely if you haven't had your idea of language learning revolutionized already, then I'm happy to be part of that revolution of the way you think about language learning. And I'm hoping that the whole world will start to see it like this, because it's crazy how people are going about it. That's why so many people say, I've studied Spanish. I can't believe it. Like, I've studied Spanish for like 10 years, 12 years, or 7 years. Never got to the past tense, or can't have a conversation. Something is wildly wrong. We'll get more and more into that. But for now, take those three things, start to imagine the implications of those things, then we're going to be building on that, building on those concepts in the rest of this How to Learn Any Language course.